Welcome to Spoiler Corner, Part 2. You
want to explain what's been going on for the past 3 damn hours?
Okay, so we recorded a Spoiler Corner, but I accidentally turned the mic off because I thought we were going to do something else, and it didn't record.
It was 40 minutes of talking where I finally brought Doug around pretty much to my point of view.
We'll go into that.
Yeah, we'll go into that. Mostly. But I shit you not, but it happened live, which was the cool thing, because you're like, oh, man, and after all of that, Doug's like, oh crap, the mic was off.
So we needed a break, so we went and watched what we're going to review for the NC, which took a lot out of us.
Yeah, so needless to say, although it looks like we would have just done this right after we've had a 3-hour break.
Yeah,
and we are completely destroyed because what we watched was so terrible.
It's pretty bad.
And long. So long.
But the nice thing is this will be more concise, hopefully.
And it made me appreciate Godzilla all the more.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. Now do you see what I mean? You see how this film mucks everything up and there was so much excess in certain areas? How maybe saving Godzilla was not a bad idea?
Well, okay, so let's talk about the big spoilers first. The biggie is that Bryan Cranston dies very early on, after first third of the movie, he's gone.
And let me just say, stupid! Well, you're so stupid!
Here's what we were talking about. We'll try to sort of recreate it for you. That's our ability. We were saying that I'm not against killing off the main character early on, those kind of surprises and stuff.
But you have to have a backup then.
Yeah, you have to have
zero.
You have to have a character that's just as good, if not better, to carry it on, or develops into something good or better. And what we realize is with the soldier...
The wooden plank.
The wooden plank. The little wooden soldier.
Wooden boy! That's what we needed. Like the Tick, draw a face on it. That's all. And that was the problem, because it would cut away from Godzilla, and it's not that there's two little Godzilla, it's that when it cuts away to little wooden boy from the Tick.
But I was saying that I think on his own... The son is not very interesting, but when he's with Bryan Cranston, when he's with his family and stuff like that, when he's with the kid, I think he's okay.
I would argue again, though, not because he's acting great, but because the script gave you a reason to care. Between the little kid, which he did, that was the only scene I think I really enjoyed the acting with the little kid, and yes, against Bryan Cranston, he kind of worked, because Cranston was so crazy.
And he was the voice of reason.
He was the voice of reason. But you remove people for him to act off of. He cannot carry this film alone to save his life.
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, he is not great as an actor. But he's also not given a ton after Cranston leaves, because it's just get home to your family, and that's it. But
just look interesting. Emote something.
Okay, and this is everything
is the exact opposite of Ken Watanabe, who has no reason to emote, and yet has this bizarre 1,000-yard stare, which I'm just like, it's really interesting. We don't know what the hell his backstory is, which is a film fail, but I'm guessing Ken Watanabe did, because he just always looks like there's something going on, oh, this is reminding me of that time way back when that the film's never going to bring up. It's going to cut to a flashback that never happens.
Well, and then what we were saying before is that with the soldier, you were saying a lot of people are saying, but he's a soldier. They're supposed to desensitize themselves from it. They're supposed to be simple. They're supposed to be just focus on the mission, the family is the mission. Isn't that touching? Blah, blah, blah. The thing is that if that is the case,
never does anything with
fair enough, but why not explain that to him? Why not show have another guy for him to talk to, who doesn't get that? How can you be so calm? How can you be so have him talk about how you have to remove yourself from it, and maybe at some point he starts to break, maybe at some point something is challenged.
I call it the Winston effect. The only reason Winston initially was in the Ghostbusters is they wanted somebody to be able to work off of to help explain it. And the thing is, it actually works. Winston is an interesting character, but part of the fun is he's used there to bounce off the other guys so they can explain things to him, or that Winston can explain things to the mayor, or that, And without a character like that, you just have this one guy walking around, deer in the headlights look, this is my mission, I must do this, and it just it's not great.
Yeah, the thought of Bryan Cranston wanted to prove something, and he wanted to make something better, for his wife, and he wanted to avenge his wife, he wanted to do all this stuff, and all this guy wants to do is get home to his family, which is fair enough, family's important. And you even have, Bryan Cranston saying, value your family and everything, but he wasn't really in any danger of that to begin with. Granted, he's a soldier, but he seems fine with his family, fine with his wife, fine with his kids.
There's just no pathos or passion behind it. Cranston had...
There's no arc either, really.
Yeah, there's no arc. He starts off with his family. He's torn apart from his family, but we knew that was going to happen anyway because it says from the beginning, you're always leaving your family. And then he just ends up with his family again. I felt there was no development in the wife, the kid, or him. The only thing that changes is he ends up believing his damn father. Which is why Cranston should have been alive longer, because it should have been about that dynamic.
Well, and this is what we were getting to. We were talking about the climax and how it was, I was sort of saying that it's like, the sort of black on black with the CG and stuff. I said it was really dark, and I said sometimes it's easier to spot the fakeness when you do that. But I was saying what I liked about was that there was this atmosphere that you've kind of traveled into this uncomfortable, dark,
for the record, I love
place.
the climax, and the darkness didn't bother me.
Well, no, what I was saying is that, for me, it was more just the effects themselves. Like, you can kind of tell a little bit more it's CG when it's dark on dark. But I was saying that I liked the atmosphere that when they're diving in, and they go past Godzilla, and you hear the 2001 music, and stuff.
This took us to a point, because then we started talking about... Because I started making the argument that I was like, that scene was incredible. It was the trailer scene as well, but the interesting thing is I saw those army guys who know they're going to be jumping into what could be certain death, don't know what's down there. You have the 2001 music. Great score, by the way. We should have mentioned that at some point, but fantastic music in this movie. Alexander Desplat, I think. But so anyway, they're jumping, and I'm like, I really wanted to be wrapped up in these guys, like really care about them. And I cared about them a little because it was such a well put together scene. And I sat there though, as they jumped, I just thought, it's such a shame I don't give a crap, because I should be terrified. I should be like completely in with these guys and just totally gung-ho and this is gonna be amazing and they may die and I'm like really concerned for these guys and, because it was such a badass scene.
And then, what I was getting to is I said, what if, I thought in my head, what if either Bryan Cranston, wouldn't make sense why he'd be on there, but Bryan Cranston or a character the equivalent of the amount I care and got into Bryan Cranston was on that plane and he was jumping out and he was flying past the monster and concerned about just filled with terror and he wants to get back, he wants to avenge his wife, he wants to make sure that his life means something, but there's this monster and he has to do this because this is what killed his wife, all this stuff, and the fear that he felt was so real. What if
Bryan Cranston knows what his son is doing, and his son is going to jump out of a plane, and now he has to face the reality, maybe he's going to lose them all now. And, because they showed they're willing to kill off a major character, you could have killed off the son too. There's nothing that says it has to be Bryan Cranston or this character.
And what I was saying too is that, this movie seemed to... I was getting the feeling that it kind of wanted to do what Cloverfield was doing mixed with a traditional Godzilla movie, but, take away the shaky cam, but it wanted to create an environment where anyone could die, and I think that's why they killed off Bryan Cranston so early, but that's the only one that kind of goes, that's a main character, everyone else sticks around and they're not that interesting.
See, it didn't tell me that the problem is when you killed Bryan Cranston off, I didn't get the feeling that now nobody's safe, I got the feeling that, wow, everybody's safe. Because you just played your major card.
Well, correct, because there's no other characters
there's nobody
that you
else
would care if they die. So what I was saying is that I was suddenly thinking, what if they did add more characters that you care just as much about Bryan Cranston? What if some of them died? And what if that character jumping in, into the clouds, into that heart of hell there, was just as fearful, but just as brave and gonna go through this and
last man standing even.
Yeah,
like at this point, everybody else is still alive
and had all this weight that was established, like what they did with Bryan Cranston. And what I realized is that if they did that, if they had characters that good and that strong, that you are literally like, I don't know if this character will make it. They might not make it. I do not want to see them die. That scene going in would have been terrifying. And on top of that, I think you would have been right. I think you would need just about the amount of Godzilla that you saw, because the focus on the characters would be so
because you care and that's when I asked, and I'm just like, if you had the same amount of Godzilla, didn't change a thing with the Muto's Godzilla, all those scenes exactly the same amount of timing, but you cared so much about the characters when you cut away to them and you're not sure if they really will live or die and you're completely invested in them, you wouldn't be complaining about the lack of Godzilla because you're like, oh my god, this film just has everything.
It would be aliens. It would be that you are so invested in these people.
Did, right.
Yeah. Now that would be...
And that's a great example of like, oh, like the people are just like, oh, well, he's really subtle. He's a soldier. He has to do his job. Watch Aliens. Every one of those characters may border on caricature, but they are interesting to watch, and that's what
I feel bad when any of them die.
And when any of them goes, I feel terrible. Even the initial, like when they first go in and the aliens take out like 5 at once, you know, including the commander, or the chief or whatever, you feel bad. You've gotten to know these people, and yet when those soldiers jump at the end of, near the end of Godzilla, I'm like, I should be so feeling it for these guys. I just don't, because the script just didn't give them anything.
So now my argument, though, I do finally see the point. I see the point about really getting the investment in the people and how that can still make a good Godzilla movie. It'd be a little different, but it would still make a good Godzilla movie because all the other trademarks are there.
It would be like the original Godzilla movie. Like, that's what they attempted to do way more. It was a socio-political commentary with a love triangle. Yeah, there was a ton of stuff going on.
Well, but I was saying with something, again, we've seen the original Godzilla. This is years later. You know, it's like, let's see some more cool destruction and stuff. But I was saying even more than that one, though, they would have to go even darker, in my opinion, to how many characters they kill off, how well you know them, how much emotional baggage you give them, how much weight is on them. So there would have to be a few differences.
Yeah, but, see, that's the thing. That's what I was saying right before we cut out when we were doing this originally, is they did. And it was with Bryan Cranston.
Yeah, but no,
everything
not just him. They need other characters.
I agree, but that's the thing. They proved conclusively that you could make this dark, messed up, but entertaining at the same time. Bryan Cranston was entertaining to watch. It was a tortured performance, it was a good performance, and it straddled that line of just hope, just the right amount of crazy hokey, but also really dark to get through. You understood what he lost. The scene where he loses his wife is fucked up.
Yeah.
It is a great scene. I'm like, this is torture. Like, I'm like, when she comes up against the window and is like, not, and the door closes.
But it's still a Godzilla movie. That's
it's still a Godzilla movie.
Godzilla.
It's
that's
still
very hard to do. It's very hard to do.
It still works. And for some reason, the second they kill Cranston off, they just ditched all of that, chucked it out the window. And I'm like, had you kept going with that, this movie would be a really great one instead of just a good one. I think it's a good movie. But I can't call it great because that one problem is there. And when you cut away, I was saying earlier, it's like the domestic family drama and stuff that they're apparently having is just so uninteresting when you cut away from Godzilla. It's like cutting away from a Godzilla movie or this great giant explosion to somebody's, like, YouTube home movies. That's what it felt like with that guy and his wife. It's not that they were terrible characters. They don't offend me like the 98 Godzilla, where I really wanted every character to die. I just hated them. But they're just nothing. I'm just like, okay, now I'm watching somebody's lame home movies. Like, get back to Godzilla.
Well, and the argument I was making then is that this is why I think it's, if you're not going to fill it with those people, you might as well fill it with the action, to make it a Pacific Rim, make it an action movie, you know, go that route. But now what I was saying is that, and that's still my argument. If you're not going to do one, you know, do the other.
But then I just get sick of that.
But I do now at least see the argument, because going in, somebody was asking me at a con, you know, well, what do you think of the new Godzilla movie? What are your thoughts about it before it came out? And I was saying, I just don't want to see a movie where people are just like, oh God, Godzilla, because I'm like, it's a Godzilla movie, come on, just have him destroy stuff. And I thought you couldn't really do that today with Godzilla, because it's such a silly idea, this giant monster.
And you kept Bryan Cranston the whole film, you totally could.
But yeah, now I see that it could be done. I do at least now understand how it could be done. I just don't think they did it. At least for the second half of the movie.
That part I actually agree with you. I don't think the human element was good. I just don't think that's an argument for we need more Godzilla. That's an argument for we need better characters.
Well, no, my thought is that you have to be one or the other.
Godzilla movie. Like, here's the funny thing. You talk about, like, well, we've seen the original Godzilla movie before. Not really. We saw it back in '54, but since then, the whole style of filmmaking in the Godzilla movies as well has just become Godzilla versus this, Godzilla versus that, monster, monster, monster. We've got Pacific Rim, which I do love Pacific Rim. This isn't an insult to Pacific Rim, but the one kind of weakness for me is, after a while, I kind of get sick of them just punching each other. We get Transformers, where it's nothing but them punching each other. Man of Steel, where it's nothing but people punching each other for hours. After a while, it gets old, and I would rather take this style, where even if the characters are bland, I'm like, okay, I sit through and wait in line through some bland characters to get just the right amount of Godzilla that leaves me wanting just a little more. But I'm satisfied, because like, I want more. I don't leave the theater going, I've had enough, I don't want to see this again. You know, I leave happy, just like, that's like a good meal, like I want more. I'm not stuffed and I'm gonna vomit.
See, if the characters were strong enough all the way through, that's what I would say. But because they weren't, that left me with this big, gaping, empty hole of just monsters looking around for this guy you don't care about, you know, or is not very interesting, and just going through the woods, going through these places, and skipping the cool action stuff. My thought is that at least fill it with the cool monster stuff.
See, I would rather they focus.
If they had to choose one,
I thought the action was so well done, and the way they captured everything in those scenes was so well done. I would rather they focus on 20 really good minutes of Godzilla doing what he does, rather than sloppily putting together 2 hours of Godzilla just, you know, running around and destroying things. Like, because after a while, you just can't keep up the momentum. It just gets old. And I'm like, this was, you know what it is? This is like this is like the difference between eating like a 5-star meal, really like, that you had to wait for, like forever, versus just going to McDonald's and getting it really fast. You got more food with McDonald's, you got it faster, but it's like, man, like the quality of that other meal was so good. It was just worth the wait.
I mean, I get it. I think you could possibly satisfy both if you didn't go the route with having the really, really interesting characters, instead go for the very quote-unquote normal, boring guy, which I still make the argument normal people are people you don't know very, very well, so make us know them, make them interesting, make them strange, you know, make them relatable.
It's not just the acting. I will give him credit. It's not just the acting. The script doesn't give much either. Like, the script threw everything for some reason into Cranston. We never find out about Ken Watanabe's backstory. We only know about the son's backstory just through his relationship to Cranston. I never know anything about his wife. Never. It's like literally just like, here, we just threw these characters on a screen, and I'm like, I don't know what's driving these people.
But yeah, I mean, my thought is that since it doesn't work all the way as a human story, I think, well, at least I can get, you know, I can say it works well as a monster movie, and even that, the first 40 minutes does the build-up, and I argue the last 20 minutes does, but everything else is stuff we've seen a million times in other monster movies, and it's so boring when you're not, you know, following anybody that's that interesting. So...
Yeah, but the solution then is, don't put more Godzilla in it. The solution is just make the characters better.
Do one or the other. No, if you're not going to do this thing with the characters, make it a cool monster movie. Make the monsters cool and awesome and design.
But I'm just saying, if you just kept throwing more and more Godzilla, it wouldn't have been a cool monster movie. It would have started to look like every other monster movie on the planet, where it just throws too much shit in.
I'll say this. If they went the route where they had the characters as good as Cranston, or had Cranston just all the way through, that would have been the better route to take than adding more Godzilla. But as is, I think another, you know, it's like, that's the first way to fix it. If the studio says, no, we can't do that, then throw in more Godzilla. That's
I don't think this was the studio, because it was like...
Oh, I don't know. Whoever.
If I remember right, this was one script writer. I get more worried about studios when you see 4 writers. I think it just was a sloppy script. I think it's another, because all the scenes with Godzilla in it were directed well. Even the scenes without him, I thought, looked fine. So I'm just wondering if this is like just screenwriters fail. Like, the script just sucked and it was good filmmaking. Like Spider-Man 2, I thought the same thing. I'm like, what a crappy sort of script throwing all these different elements in, but it was just shot beautifully, and, you know, I don't know, I feel like this is a common problem. Like,
well, like I said, I do see very much now, like I said, how this could work with the amount of Godzilla that is in it. And even those scenes, if they played out as they did, if you had a Bryan Cranston or someone just as interesting as Bryan Cranston, or just more characters. going through more characters that you actually know and aren't just he's
Well,
going
that's
there,
the
he's
thing.
going there.
The son is so boring. You could have thrown in a couple extra.
No, you
characters.
could have. You could have started
Like,
off with.
I just was just like so. Just like I'm like, oh, like
What
him
was it?
again. I
What
kept
was it?
falling
If it
asleep. I'm like,
was-
there he is again. Like,
if it was the son, Bryan Cranston,
Yeah.
and well, what's his name again?
Ken Watanabe.
Yeah, if it was the three of them, throughout this whole film, and you focused on the three of them the whole time, the amount of Godzilla that you see in this movie, I would argue possibly could have worked. But as is, I don't think it's strong enough, and one of the solutions had to be chosen.
People in this film are their actions. They're their careers. They're
Yeah.
not what they feel. Like the wife, I save people. I take care of my kid. The
Yeah, the
soldier,
general.
I's the general. I'm barking orders. Cranston is the only one you knew how he felt, and that is the difference between him and everyone else. I don't know. I still don't get how they did that so well and then ignored it. Was it an unfinished script?
Like I said, I really think the idea was to make it so that if he dies, you think like, wow, anyone can die, so you'll feel for them more. But I don't think it worked, and I don't.
Yeah,
think
no, I don't.
You
I'm
needed
just
more
like-
characters like
I'm
him.
like, you're
in
less
order to
likely
get
to lose another character like that, unless this really is aliens, but they were living so long, I'm like, there's no way they're killing any of these people off at the end.
So, yeah, I see this, like I said, there's a million thoughts on this movie, a million opinions. I
Really?
see,
Doesn't need less Godzilla, just needs more Bryan Cranston. That's the solution.
I could lean towards that. I could lean towards that. I will
Checkmate.
Say, no, but I will say, I'm glad... In a strange way, I'm glad it's a Godzilla movie. For someone that doesn't really even care that much about Godzilla movies, I'm glad it is.
Communist!
No. Like, I like them fine, but it's like, I'm not, like, super into them. I wasn't very hyped to see this movie, honestly, but I'm glad it is a Godzilla movie, it's updated, and it did take some risks. Even if they didn't pay off, I'm still like, okay, I'm glad you took the risks. Man, I wish it followed all the way through with one of those elements.
I want to
either
see
more
a new,
humans or more Godzilla.
I want to see a new director's cut, or like, you know how we completely destroyed the Showa era film, the 54, when you throw Raymond Burr in there looking the wrong way.
Yeah.
I want to see the Japanese do their own cut, and like they're just like, oh, this Bryan Cranston guy, he's really good. The rest of this, no, we remake, we refilm, and then like completely do a different plot throughout the last half of it. That occasionally just cuts back to the sun every once in a while, like, oh, at the very end, I'm still alive. Like, I'd kill this because I'm like, that's the only way you can fix this. I'm like, get some directors together and just like be like, you know what? All right, we messed up. Let's just redo all these scenes. Godzilla scenes are fine. We got that. We'll keep the same plot, but we gotta flesh out these characters more. So
Japan, get on it.
make it so.